I think where people go wrong is when they think that things can remain timeless and that.
When the news of Ace Frehley's death broke, the rock world fell into an almost sacred silence. Across continents and generations, fans poured their disbelief, their heartbreak, and their memories into social media feeds, forums, and music halls. The Spaceman, a man whose very presence electrified stages and inspired generations of guitarists, was gone. Yet amid the waves of grief and tributes, one voice was notably absent: Paul Stanley. For days there was no statement, no tweet, no whisper from Kiss's star child. People wondered aloud if this silence was a reflection of lingering tensions, a private grief too intimate to share publicly, or simply a delay in formulating words that could capture decades of shared history. As tributes grew louder, guitarists playing Shock Me and Rocket Ride in living rooms and concert halls, fans leaving candles outside the Kiss Museum in Las Vegas, Paul's silence became almost more conspicuous than Ace's death itself. The relationship between Paul and Ace had always been layered with complexity. To the casual observer, they were the perfect yin and yang of rock mythology, the disciplined perfectionist and the untamed virtuoso. But beneath the makeup and pyrotechnics lay a history of friction, rivalry, admiration, and brotherhood. And so, as the world mourned the passing of one of rock's most enigmatic figures, it also waited, collectively holding its breath, for the words of the one person who had known Ace perhaps better than anyone else. Paul Stanley's silence was noticed immediately. Unlike other musicians who rushed to social media to pay homage, Paul remained absent from the conversation. Fans began speculating. Was he still bitter over past disputes? Did old wounds prevent him from speaking openly? Or was he simply mourning in his own intensely private way? For decades, Paul and Ace had shared a unique bond, one forged in the fires of creativity and stoked by the tensions of conflicting personalities. They had built Kiss into a phenomenon, together navigating the triumphs and trials of fame. And yet, as fans observed the silence, it became clear that the dynamics between them were far from simple. Paul's eventual statement, when it came, would not just be a tribute. It would be a window into decades of unspoken history, rivalry, and respect. In the meantime, the absence of Paul's voice became a story of its own. Interviews with fans, commentary from music journalists, and posts from fellow musicians all reflected a singular question: how would the star child honor the spaceman? The silence became a mirror, reflecting not just the loss but the intricate web of emotions, pride, and unresolved tension that defined their decades-long relationship. After nearly a week, Paul finally broke his silence, but not alone. In a rare joint statement with Gene Simmons, Paul expressed the complexity of grief, respect, and long-shared history. Their words were raw, honest, and resonant. Ace was an essential and irreplaceable rock soldier during some of the most formative chapters of Kiss. His style, his sound, and his spirit helped shape everything we became. He was our brother, our bandmate, and our friend. Today we remember the laughter, the music, and the fire that only he could bring. Peter Criss, the original drummer, added his perspective, emphasizing the impact Ace had on millions of fans. Ace influenced and touched the hearts of people everywhere. His guitar sang like no one else's. He was one of a kind. The public reaction was instantaneous. Fans, musicians, and journalists alike reflected on what these words meant: reconciliation, tribute, and closure, all wrapped into a final acknowledgement of a man whose music and spirit had shaped their lives. The tributes felt like the final chord of a song that had spanned 50 years, honoring the man behind the legend, the human beneath the makeup. Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley shared one of the most complicated relationships in rock history. They were never enemies, yet rarely perfectly aligned. Their personalities clashed in ways that were both creative and combustible. Paul's obsession with perfection, precision, and discipline often conflicted with Ace's raw spontaneity and instinctive approach to music. From the earliest days of Kiss, their contrast fueled some of the band's most explosive creativity. Paul meticulously rehearsed, ensuring that every note landed exactly as planned. Ace, in contrast, thrived in chaos, following intuition and feeling rather than any rigid structure. This dynamic created magic on stage, but tension offstage became inevitable. Their bond was a mix of admiration and rivalry. Despite occasional disagreements, they were bound together by music. The Star Child and the Spaceman were two halves of a rock mythos, each dependent on the other to create the spectacle that became Kiss. But the friction also sowed the seeds of conflict that would echo through decades of tours, albums, and personal interactions. As Kiss grew into a global phenomenon, creative differences became more pronounced. Paul and Gene increasingly dominated production, songwriting, and business decisions, while Ace felt his input marginalized. He longed to keep Kiss hard, heavy, and unfiltered, but the band was shifting toward spectacle polish and commercial appeal. Ace often felt like a guest in his own band. The tension was compounded by Ace's struggles with substances. While Paul valued discipline and consistency, Ace's erratic behavior disrupted rehearsals and recording sessions. In interviews, Paul candidly referred to Ace as incredibly talented but unreliable, while Ace criticized the others for being control freaks. This period highlighted the duality of their relationship, creative brilliance juxtaposed with professional conflict. The music thrived, yet the friendship quietly eroded. Despite these struggles, the foundation of mutual respect remained, making their eventual reunion and tributes all the more poignant. Ace's departure from Kiss in 1982 was inevitable, a mix of personal frustration and creative differences. The split was not explosive, but it left a gap in the chemistry that defined the band's early years. Over the following decades, interviews revealed occasional barbs and criticisms from both sides. Even during the 1996 reunion tour, tension simmered behind the smiles. Yet, the underlying bond endured. Though old wounds never fully healed, the shared history and music kept them connected in a way that words alone could not capture. Fans recognized this dynamic, understanding that the reconciliation would always be incomplete, yet profoundly human. When Paul Stanley finally spoke, his words were more than a tribute. They were closure. He acknowledged Ace as an irreplaceable force within Kiss, highlighting the brotherhood forged by music despite personal differences. This final acknowledgement reflected decades of unspoken respect, shared memories, and the creative energy that had defined their legendary collaboration. By 2025, Ace Frehley had entered a quieter chapter in his life. After years of touring, recovery, and reflection, he was performing, recording, and engaging with fans, still exuding that familiar spark. Yet decades of physical strain and old habits had taken their toll. On September 25, 2025, Ace suffered a severe fall in his home studio in upstate New York. Initially, the accident seemed minor, but within hours, he was hospitalized with a traumatic brain injury. His family and friends watched as his condition deteriorated. Despite hope for recovery, complications mounted and the difficult decision to remove life support was made. Ace Frehley passed peacefully at age 74, surrounded by family. The announcement of Ace's death sent shockwaves through the music world. Tributes poured in globally. Fans left candles, guitars, and memorabilia outside landmarks. Fellow musicians shared heartfelt posts. Rock stations devoted hours to his music. Songs like New York Groove, Shock Me, and Rocket Ride dominated playlists once again, bridging generations of listeners and reminding the world of the unique energy Ace brought to music. Ace's impact extended beyond the makeup, beyond the riffs, beyond the chaos. He was authentic, raw, and unfiltered, influencing countless musicians and shaping the sound of hard rock. Solo albums showcased his talent and swagger, proving his genius beyond Kiss. Despite struggles, fans remained loyal, seeing in Ace a reflection of the dreamer in themselves, ambitious, imperfect, and relentless. Ace Frehley embodied rebellion, genius, and human vulnerability. His guitar solo spoke volumes, conveying emotion and defiance that transcended words. Behind the public persona was a man who wanted to be seen, not merely observed, a dreamer whose unpredictability was both his armor and curse. Paul Stanley's tribute encapsulated reconciliation, respect, and closure. Ace's death marked not only the end of an era, but also the acknowledgement of a shared journey, the celebration of a legacy, and the immortalization of a rebel who burned brightly, briefly, but memorably. The chaos he brought to Kiss gave their order meaning. His music and spirit will forever hum beneath the thunder of rock history. Ace Frehley didn't just play guitar, he defined it. His solos were not just notes strung together, but lightning strikes, moments that electrified arenas and whispered rebellion to anyone who listened closely. Shock Me, Cold Gin, Parasite. Each song carried his signature blend of spontaneity, swagger, and chaos. He turned the guitar into a voice, one that could scream, whisper, and soar in the same breath. Generations of guitarists cite Ace as a pioneer, someone who proved that technical perfection was secondary to feel and emotion. His style inspired countless musicians from heavy metal to punk rock, from underground clubs to stadium stages. Ace taught the world that authenticity in music, messy, raw, and unapologetic, could create timeless art. Even as the band leaned toward spectacle and polish, his solos reminded everyone that rock and roll was first and foremost about soul and fire. Fans didn't just follow Ace Frehley. They connected with him, understood him, and saw themselves in him. He was the dreamer who couldn't always stay steady, the rebel who sometimes faltered but never stopped striving. Concert-goers remember him laughing, teasing, and playing with abandon, giving each performance the feeling of spontaneity and danger. His unpredictability was magnetic. It mirrored life itself, thrilling, chaotic, imperfect. Fans who grew up watching him bend notes into galaxies found inspiration in his flaws, lessons in resilience, and hope in the freedom he embodied. Outside the stadiums, Ace's charm, humor, and authenticity made him approachable, human, and deeply admired. The connection was intimate yet universal, a testament to the power of music to transcend the stage. When Ace went solo in 1978, he stepped into the unknown. Few expected success beyond Kiss's shadow, yet his debut solo album defied expectations. New York Groove captured everything Ace represented: motion, humor, swagger, and independence. He was unchained, fully himself, demonstrating that his genius wasn't limited to a band or a persona. But freedom came with risk. The success of solo work opened doors, but it also exposed him to temptation, isolation, and the vulnerabilities that had plagued him since the early days. Despite the highs and lows, Ace remained a creative force, continually experimenting, writing, and performing, even when life's chaos threatened to pull him under. His solo career became a parallel story to Kiss's journey, one of risk, experimentation, and unapologetic self-expression. Beneath the glitter, makeup, and spectacle, Ace Frehley was profoundly human. His smiles, jokes, and charisma concealed the struggles of a man seeking acceptance, freedom, and meaning. Every solo carried not just music but emotion, a yearning to be understood, a subtle plea to be seen beyond the spaceman mask. Fans and colleagues often remarked on his warmth, his quick wit, and the quiet moments of reflection that contrasted sharply with his public persona, even in the roughest periods of his life. When addiction, isolation, and unpredictability tested him, Ace maintained a spark, a stubborn refusal to be ordinary, a dedication to his art, and an authenticity that made him unforgettable. From Kiss's explosive early concerts to his solo tours, Ace Frehley's performances were legendary. Every guitar solo, every riff, every daring move on stage carried the thrill of unpredictability. His presence on stage wasn't just entertainment, it was a force of nature. Key milestones punctuated his career: the electrifying debut with Kiss in 1973, the groundbreaking solo album in 1978, the 1996 reunion tour, and countless special performances across the globe. Each performance reminded audiences that rock was not merely music. It was energy, attitude, and the embodiment of rebellion. Ace's stagecraft, technical skill, and raw personality left a lasting imprint on generations of fans and musicians alike. While much of Ace's story revolves around Kiss, his relationships beyond the band also shaped his life. Family, close friends, and collaborators bore witness to his complex personality. Generous, funny, and unpredictable, his family remembered him as a loving father and husband, someone who, despite fame and chaos, prioritized connections with those closest to him. Collaborators spoke of his genius, his spontaneity, and his infectious enthusiasm. These relationships highlighted a man who, while larger than life on stage, remained deeply human and profoundly capable of love, humor, and loyalty. Ace Frehley's legacy extends far beyond Kiss and the world of rock guitar. He influenced not just musicians but the very culture of rock and roll. His approach, raw, authentic, and fearless, showed the world that music could be both playful and profound, chaotic and meaningful. His persona, The spaceman became a symbol of freedom, creativity, and rebellion. He inspired countless imitators, from aspiring guitarists to professional musicians, proving that innovation often comes from breaking the rules rather than following them. Even decades later, his music continues to resonate, bridging generations and reminding the world of the power of authenticity and daring creativity. As the world remembers Ace Frehley, the story is not just of a musician, but of a man who lived fiercely, loved intensely, and left a mark impossible to erase. His unpredictability, humor, and brilliance created music that still resonates. Paul Stanley's tribute after Ace's death encapsulated the essence of their bond: admiration, rivalry, brotherhood, and reconciliation. In life and death, Ace embodied the spirit of rock and roll, defiant, electric, messy, and sublime. He may have burned fast, but he illuminated the sky for all who looked up. His story reminds us that greatness is never tidy, that art thrives in chaos, and that the heart of a true rebel continues to echo long after the final note fades. Ace Frehley's spaceman persona was more than makeup and stage gimmicks. It was a manifestation of his inner self. The glitter, the silver face paint, and the rocket-themed theatrics were extensions of his desire to create a world where fantasy and reality collided. On stage, he was untouchable, almost mythical. Off stage, he remained unpredictable, vulnerable, and very human. This duality fascinated fans. To many, Ace was a superhero in silver, a symbol of rebellion and limitless possibility. To those who knew him personally, he was a man who craved freedom, authenticity, and understanding. The spaceman was a lens through which the world saw Ace's genius, chaos, and charm, all wrapped into one unforgettable package. Ace Frehley didn't just play guitar, he reshaped it. His solos were characterized by a blend of melody and aggression, technical precision, and raw emotion. Techniques like controlled string bends, tremolo effects, and signature whammy dives became his signature. Songs like Shock Me showcased his ability to turn a simple riff into a narrative, each note conveying emotion beyond words. Guitarists around the world dissected his playing, trying to emulate the spontaneity that came so naturally to him. Ace's innovations weren't limited to sound, they were performance art. Every solo told a story, every riff was a character, and every note reinforced his place as one of rock's most inventive guitarists. Behind the theatrics and music lay a man grappling with personal demons. Ace's battles with alcohol and substances were well documented, and they affected his career, relationships, and health. Yet these struggles also humanized him, showing fans that even legends are vulnerable. Ace's journey through addiction, relapses, and recovery mirrored the life of a rebel navigating fame and pressure. While these challenges caused tension with bandmates and influenced his decisions, they also highlighted his resilience. He bounced back repeatedly, returning to music, performing live, and reconnecting with fans. His life story became a testament to survival, perseverance, and the enduring power of creativity despite personal obstacles. Beyond public statements, Ace's bandmates reflected privately on the impact he had on Kiss and on their lives. Paul Stanley spoke of Ace's genius and unpredictability, acknowledging how his raw energy pushed the band to heights they could never have reached alone. Gene Simmons often highlighted Ace's instinctive creativity, noting that his contributions shaped some of the band's most iconic songs. Peter Criss remembered Ace as a partner in chaos and friendship, someone whose presence on stage transformed ordinary performances into legendary shows. These reflections underscored the deep respect and affection the band retained for Ace, even amid decades of tension, creative differences, and personal challenges. Ace Frehley's final tours were marked by a mix of nostalgia and reflection. Fans were drawn not just to the music but to the legend himself. Despite his age and health challenges, he performed with the same energy that had defined his career. Each show was a reminder of why he was unforgettable: spontaneous solos, playful interaction with the audience, and a charm that never dimmed. Even brief public appearances showcased his enduring charisma. Whether signing autographs, posing for photos, or sharing a story backstage, Ace remained approachable, generous, and deeply connected to his audience. These moments reinforced the duality that defined his life: the spaceman on stage and the man behind the mask. Ace Frehley's influence extended beyond music into broader pop culture. His style, persona, and attitude inspired fashion, art, and media portrayals of rock stars. From comic books to merchandise, the spaceman became an icon representing rebellion, creativity, and individuality. He was often cited in documentaries, interviews, and retrospectives as a symbol of freedom in rock music. Young musicians and fans looked up to him not only for his technical skills, but for his courage to live authentically, embrace imperfections, and defy expectations. Ace's cultural footprint ensured that his impact would endure long after his final note faded. Fans often shared personal stories of how Ace Frehley touched their lives. A guitarist inspired to pursue music after hearing New York Groove, a teenager feeling understood by his rebellious spirit, or a longtime fan traveling across the country to see him live. All these stories highlighted the human connection Ace fostered. These anecdotes revealed that Ace's influence was intimate as well as global. He wasn't just a performer, he was a companion, a role model, and a dreamer who encouraged others to embrace their own passions and imperfections. Ace Frehley's life was a delicate balance between fame and personal fulfillment. The spotlight brought success, admiration, and fortune, but it also demanded sacrifices, privacy, relationships, and sometimes mental and physical well-being. Despite the glamour, Ace never lost his authenticity. He navigated the pressures of superstardom with humor, resilience, and creativity, often turning challenges into inspiration for his music. His journey illustrates the cost of living a life in the public eye while remaining true to oneself. Modern guitarists across genres frequently cite Ace Frehley as an inspiration. His approach to melody, improvisation, and stage presence has shaped rock, metal, punk, and alternative music. Many contemporary musicians credit him for teaching them that technical skill is important, but feeling and personality are equally crucial. Ace's legacy continues to ripple through the music world, proving that his influence extends far beyond Kiss. His solos, style, and persona remain benchmarks for aspiring musicians seeking to combine authenticity, creativity, and performance energy. In the end, Ace Frehley's story is about music, rebellion, genius, and humanity. He lived fully, played passionately, and inspired endlessly. His presence remains in every riff, every solo, and every stage he ever graced. Paul Stanley's tribute captured the essence of their relationship: complicated, fiery, yet bound by music. Ace's passing marked the end of a chapter, but his spirit continues to resonate. The spaceman may have left the stage, but his light, chaos, and brilliance will forever burn in the hearts of fans and the history of rock music. Ace Frehley believed music was not just about notes or technical mastery, it was about feeling. He often said that the guitar should speak the language of emotion, that every solo should tell a story, convey a mood, or express what words could not. This philosophy guided his entire career. Whether on stage with Kiss or in a solo studio session, Ace prioritized authenticity over perfection. He often preferred instinct over calculation, spontaneity over rigid planning. To him, music was freedom, a place where rebellion and creativity could coexist. Fans and musicians alike were drawn to this approach, realizing that Ace's philosophy wasn't just a style, but a way of life, fearless, unfiltered, and unapologetically true. Touring with Ace Frehley was legendary, unpredictable, and at times chaotic. Fellow bandmates and crew recall stories of his humor, mischief, and occasional unpredictability backstage. One day he might arrive hours late, laughing and shrugging off the stress of logistics. Another day he would perform a flawless, electrifying show, leaving everyone in awe. Despite the chaos, Ace's passion was undeniable. Every concert, every soundcheck, and every interaction with fans reflected a man who lived for music and performance. Touring was more than work. It was a stage where his creativity, energy, and personality could shine. Those who traveled with him knew that Ace's brilliance was inseparable from his human quirks. Ace's stage persona, the silver face paint, the jumpsuits, the rockets, was an extension of his identity, but his influence went beyond theatrics. He inspired fashion trends in rock culture, encouraging musicians to embrace bold, expressive, and sometimes eccentric styles. Ace showed that a rock star could be mythical yet approachable, flamboyant yet grounded. His image became symbolic of creativity without boundaries. Fans mimicked his style. Musicians incorporated elements of his persona into their performances, and the spaceman became an enduring icon of rock rebellion. Ace's connection with his fans was deep and personal. He often spent hours signing autographs, taking photos, or sharing stories with those who came to see him. He recognized that his music had a profound effect on people's lives, and he embraced that responsibility with humility and humor. Fans recount moments where Ace made them feel seen and appreciated. For many, these interactions were transformative, a reminder that even legendary figures could be genuine, kind, and approachable. His legacy is not only musical but profoundly human, carried forward in the memories and stories of those he touched. Ace Frehley's life offers lessons about creativity, resilience, and authenticity. He showed that brilliance often comes hand in hand with chaos, that innovation requires courage, and that imperfections can make a person unforgettable. He also taught that personal struggles, whether with fame, addiction, or relationships, do not diminish talent. Instead, they can add depth, empathy, and relatability to one's art. For aspiring musicians, Ace's story is a roadmap. Embrace your strengths, confront your weaknesses, and never let conformity suppress your creativity. Ace was known for his sly humor and playful personality. Interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, and fan stories all recount moments of levity and mischief. He could lighten tense moments on tour, charm interviewers with wit, or play pranks on his bandmates. This humor was not superficial. It revealed a man comfortable in his skin, resilient, and unafraid to be himself. His laughter, charisma, and charm made him beloved not only for his music, but for the person he was off stage. As Ace grew older, his reflection on his career and life became poignant. He recognized the fleeting nature of fame, but also celebrated the lasting impact of his music. He understood that the legacy of a true artist isn't measured by awards or charts, but by inspiration, by the lives touched, the musicians influenced, and the joy created through sound. Ace's later years were quieter but filled with gratitude. He continued performing, recording, and interacting with fans, fully aware that every note he played was a gift. His story became a testament to enduring creativity, passion, and the eternal power of music. Ace Frehley's influence extended beyond guitar solos or Kiss concerts. He reshaped rock culture, inspiring bands, fashion, stage theatrics, and even the approach to performance itself. His blend of spontaneity, technical skill, and charisma set a standard for rock musicians worldwide. Modern artists cite him as a benchmark for authenticity, showing that music is not merely a profession but a lifestyle, a daring, bold, and expressive way of being. Ace's imprint on rock culture is indelible, ensuring that his presence will be felt for generations. Ace Frehley's passing marked the end of a chapter in rock history. His death, while tragic, also highlighted the full arc of a remarkable life. Fans, bandmates, and musicians reflected on his genius, charm, and unpredictability. Paul Stanley's tribute, coupled with those from Gene Simmons and Peter Criss, emphasized reconciliation, remembrance, and respect. Ace's life was chaotic, brilliant, and fully lived, a reminder that legends leave an impact far beyond their years. His story continues to inspire, teaching that passion, authenticity, and fearless creativity are timeless. Ace Frehley may have left the stage, but his influence is eternal. Every riff, solo, and performance carries his spirit. His music continues to inspire musicians and fans alike, reminding the world that rebellion, creativity, and authenticity are forever intertwined. In the end, Ace's legacy is a story of brilliance, imperfection, and unwavering dedication to art. He was the spaceman who lived, laughed, and played like no other, a man whose presence will forever echo through the halls of rock history.